And as we are standing, I invite us to continue standing while we have the prayer by Chevelle Maitland.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, giving you thanks and praise for your goodness, your faithfulness, and your sovereign hand in the affairs of our nation. Lord, we acknowledge that every good and perfect gift comes from you. And today, as we gather for this signing ceremony, we recognize that this partnership and opportunity to build and grow reflects your divine provision. We thank you for the leaders you've appointed, our Prime Minister, government officials, and all those gathered here who have labored with wisdom and diligence to bring this vision to life. May you continue to grant them discernment, integrity, and courage as they lead this country towards prosperity and unity. We ask for your blessings upon this memorandum of understanding and the work that will follow. Lord Jesus, we commit this moment into your hands. May you be glorified through our cooperation and stewardship, and may the light of your love and truth continue to shine over this nation and its people. In Jesus' mighty and matchless name we pray. Amen.
You may be seated. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Robert Morgan, Minister without portfolio with responsibility for works in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio with responsibility for water, environment, and climate change, the Honorable Xavier Main, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, and Member of Parliament for St. Anne Southwestern, Ms. Crystal Lee, Member of Parliament, St. Anne Western, Ms. Arlene Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Honorable John Easter, Custos of St. Anne, Mr. Stephen Edwards, Managing Director, NROC, Mr. David Lazarus, Member of the Board of NROC, Mr. Hong Shong Gui, Project Manager, who is not currently in the room at the moment. He's coming back, isn't he? Oh, Mr. Gui, yes, here you are. He was sitting there when I spoke to him first, who, fun fact, is from Wuhan, and I happen to have lived in Wuhan for 1 year, in the year 2014 to the year 2015. So, fun fact. Other specially invited guests, government officials, heads of agencies, representatives from the Embassy of China, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. Good afternoon. Great. Thank you so much. We are here this afternoon for the signing of the feasibility studies MOU between China Harbor and the government of Jamaica through NROC. At this point, I have the pleasure of walking us through our program today. My name is Kimberly McLeod, but now I invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation to grace us with the welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Master of Ceremonies. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I am very, very pleased to be here for another important occasion. I know that the protocol was established by our Master of Ceremonies, but just allow me to specially recognize Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister and the Minister for Economic Growth and Job Creation. Also, Honorable Robert Morgan, under whose portfolio this signing will take place, as well as another minister in our ministry, Honorable Matthew Samuda, and all the other cabinet members, ministers, all of you distinguished ladies and gentlemen, reps from CHEC. I acknowledge you as well as the members of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, all the public officials gathered here today, I want to extend a very, very warm welcome. I see Custos seated here as well, and I acknowledge you, sir. Mr. Stephen Edwards from NROC is here. I just acknowledge everyone. And as I've said before, our Master of Ceremonies has done a wonderful job in establishing the protocol. And so it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this MOU signing between the Government of Jamaica through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation with the National Road Operating and Constructing Company, NROC, as the implementing entity, and China Harbor Engineering Company Limited, you know it better as CHEC. This MOU is to conduct essential feasibility and impact studies by the proposed extension of the North-South Highway. Of note is that the studies, technical, environmental, and social, and financial, will be at no cost to the government of Jamaica. So CHEC has proven to be a valuable partner in the design, construction, and financing of a number of critical infrastructure projects, including North-South Highway, the Palisados Shoreline Rehabilitation, the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project, the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, which is now moving very quickly, and many other projects that will benefit Jamaica and the people for years to come. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will not further delay this gathering because Minister Morgan will tell you more about the feasibility studies, and he will also update you as to the rationale. Why is it that we are doing this at this time? Suffice it to say that when feasibility is ascertained, implementation will result in effectively adding to the development of our road network, building further connectivity, and increasing industry and commerce, while providing increased access to lands for housing, agriculture, and other developments along the North-South Highway corridor. And I can't leave this podium, ladies and gentlemen, without telling you of the many significant achievements that we as a Ministry of Economic Growth, led by the Prime Minister and supported by Minister Morgan and Minister Samuda, have had. As a ministry, we are pleased to note the positive economic growth. You would know that the country has now returned to positive growth. We had a little setback by Hurricane Beryl and Tropical Storm Raphael. But now we are on a very positive trajectory. And also, I can't leave here without emphasizing the fact that the country has never seen this record low of unemployment rates. We are now at 3.3%. And I really want you to clap because I think that these are significant achievements. We have increased access to housing solutions in our ministry, particularly for those who are most vulnerable. We have also increased access to potable water as well as sewerage services. And this is in keeping with the revised 2019 National Water Sector Policy and Implementation Plan. We have upgraded our infrastructure significantly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without much more ado, let me take my leave as I feel that by now you're feeling very, very warmly welcomed to this ceremony this afternoon. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Permanent Secretary. And it is very important that we highlight the achievements of the government. And I'm sure our Permanent Secretary is very proud to do that because when you think of all these developments aptly named the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. When you think about your road, it's the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. You think about your water, it's the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And when you think about your infrastructure and housing, social housing, it's the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. So aptly named and important that we acknowledge. At this point, I have the great pleasure of saying, and I wish my Chinese was better, I wish I kept up with the practice, but I am going to attempt to let you know that my Chinese is very bad, and you can tell me how it is when you get here, but just know that I'm inviting you up to speak after this, and it is Wo Zhongguo Bu Hao. That means my Chinese is not good. Okay, so at this time, I invite Mr. Hongsheng Gui, Project Manager, China Harbor Engineering Company, to address us.
The most Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Hollis, the Honorable Minister without portfolio, Mr. Robert Morgan, the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Ms. Arlene Williams, the representative of China Embassy, Mr. Liu Yi, all esteemed guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good night. Yeah. On behalf of China Harbor Engineering Company Limited, I'm deeply honored and privileged to join you today for the signing of this important memorandum of understanding between the government of Jamaica and our entity. The relationship between CHEC and Jamaica has been a fruitful and a long-standing one. CHEC has taken and delivered numerous major infrastructural projects in Jamaica. We have successfully delivered transformative projects such as the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program, the Major Infrastructure Development Project, the North-South Highway Project, and we are currently well advanced in the South Coast Highway Improvement Project, the Montego Bay Pyramid Road Project, and most recently, the shared prosperity through accelerated improvement to our road network program. Together, these initiatives have strengthened connectivity and supported economic and social development. We are committed to applying this proven capacity and the best practices to ensure the success of this new endeavor. This ceremony represents for more than the start of a single project. This study is representative of the foundation upon which the project's success will be built. It embodies our shared vision to foster sustainable infrastructure development, enhance economic resilience, and to create lasting value for the people of Jamaica. It also reflects the enduring partnership between CHEC and the government of Jamaica, built on mutual trust and a common commitment to national development. Under this agreement, we will immediately mobilize the necessary resources to undertake detailed technical, financial, and economic feasibility studies, along with the required environmental and social impact assessments. These studies will integrate aspects of disaster risk reduction and climate resilience, guaranteeing that the initiative aligns with that of Jamaica's Vision 2030. We fully recognize that the studies and assessments under this MOU must meet the standards of Jamaica's regulatory authorities. CHEC is committed to delivering results that not only meet but exceed those expectations, ensuring that the foundation we built today will benefit many generations to come. Similarly, we are confident that with our strong management expertise, advanced technologies, and abundant resources, we have the capacity to take this initiative through to successful implementation. A feasibility study is not a destination in itself, but a gateway. It's a bridge between the aspirations and the execution. And today, we take the first step across this bridge together. We sincerely thank the government of Jamaica for its continued trust, confidence, and partnership. Together with the government of Jamaica and all stakeholders, we will create a project that stands as a model of planning, innovation, and sustainable development with the region. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Xie, Mr. Hong Shang Gui, Project Manager, China Harbor Engineering Company. And now I have the pleasure of inviting, if you didn't know, now you know, my Member of Parliament, the Minister with responsibility for work in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan.
Thank you very much, my very happy constituent who I know will be supporting me when the time comes. I won't try to pronounce Mr. Gui's name, but I want to welcome him here today. You were in China for a long time, so you learned the language. I want to welcome everyone here from the various sectors, the National Works Agency, National Road Operating and Construction Company, our colleagues from the Ministry of Economic Growth, and all the government agencies. I see the National Land Agency, I see the Forestry Department. And if I don't remember your organization, please forgive me. I see representatives from St. Anne here as well as the Custos, who has already claimed ownership. He's seeking to have the road named after him, Prime Minister. Custos, welcome to Kingston, sir, and congratulations on your appointment. Thanks to everyone who is here today for this very important occasion. Prime Minister tasked us several months ago that this is a project that is a signal project for the development of Jamaica. And I'm going to show you why this project, in the words of Shelly Belly, a TikToker, why this project is so important. May we go ahead and play the video, please, with audio.
Go through this traffic.
If I say 6 o'clock, what time of
May a little bit more volume.
Man, you go if you fly to the gun.
By the time it's man to go be hard on say one. By the time it's man to go be if I know they're supposed to go away.
But say from about 3 o'clock, them two buses they right this one.
Once you see that, you know, I can bet you from hotel ultimate. Come round jam same way.
Same way.
Me na ask you from hotel.
Remember no, me couldn't tell when last me see one vehicle pass down your store no. We are going to be no. Just look on the road and see everything you saw go in a Discovery Bay.
I'd like to thank Shelly Belly on TikTok for that very eloquent description of the current problem we face, Prime Minister. The problem we face is a consequence of the development that has taken place in that region over the past decade. It's development that we have done as a country, as a government, and as the people of St. Anne. The area of Miami Bay to Discovery Bay and surrounding areas, Ocherios, is a center of development. It's a symbol of the prosperity that has happened in our country over the last several years. They had an entertainment event on the weekend, best weekend ever. But I'm sure the motorists did not consider it to be the best weekend ever. And that is the reason why we're here today. We're here to solve that problem. St. Anne has seen a tremendous growth over the last 10 years, far beyond what was projected in the 90s and early 2000s. With this growth, there has been significant increase in the amount of vehicular traffic in St. Anne. And based on the recent traffic numbers along the North Coast Highway, the traffic volume in the parish of St. Anne has exceeded the capacity of the roadway, resulting in serious congestion, sometimes gridlock. These challenges affect the commute within the parish of St. Anne and also inhibits travel of vehicles through St. Anne, going to Trelawney, St. James, St. Mary, Portland, and other surrounding parishes. It requires urgent attention. To address this challenge and the associated congestion, the National Road Operating and Construction Company is developing the North-South Highway Extension project. This proposed scope of work includes the construction of a new overleaf graded separated interchange on the North-South Highway near Miami Bay. The interchange will facilitate westward travel to Discovery Bay Centan, which is segment 1, and eastward travel to Tower Isle, St. Mary, which is segment 2. Both segments 1 and segment 2, consequent to all the requisite feasibility studies and approvals, will be constructed and operated as toll roads. The government has been developing the concept of alignment of the highway, but now requires a number of studies to complete this phase of the project. We require technical feasibility studies, which will assess whether the project can be built using available technology, resources, and expertise, given the specific site conditions and requirements. It is also essential that a practical evaluation to the project is taken to ensure that it is achievable from a technical standpoint before significant investments are made. We also must examine the financial feasibility of the project to discover whether this project is fiscally viable. A financial feasibility analysis is designed to help determine whether the proposed project plan is likely to be successful. There's also an economic feasibility study that needs to be done. This will ensure that we can justify the spend on the project and that the benefit-cost ratio is a methodical process that evaluates the cost and outcomes of the plan is done. By considering the entire range of benefits economically and the costs related to the project from that perspective, including social and environmental factors, the government will then make a decision as to whether this project is best for Jamaica. We have had concerns over many years from different quarters about the environmental impact of projects. And I'm happy to announce that this project, the environment will be a significant concern and will be considered in all aspects of its execution. There will be evaluations looking at disaster risk reduction, climate resilience, and also components to predict, evaluate, and consider potential biophysical, social, and other relevant effects that the development may have on the surrounding environment. There are various sensitive ecological areas in the region of the alignment. So the government will have to take keen interest, led by our minister with responsibility for environment, Mr. Mattis Amuda, who is also a member of parliament in the general area. The government has been very conscious of the various aspects of this project, including the legal parameters under which the government can act in this relationship. This memorandum of understanding between the Government of Jamaica, the Ministry of Economic Growth, the National Road Operating and Construction Company, and the implementing agency, China Harbour Engineering Company, forms the framework of the cooperation in developing the required feasibility studies and impact assessments for this extension. Under the MOU, the government, through NROC, will provide the available data to facilitate the studies, while CHEC will conduct the required studies to a standard that is acceptable by the Government of Jamaica at no cost to the Government of Jamaica. The cost for the MOU is expected to be, or the cost for the components coming from the MOU will be technical feasibility about $80 million, financial feasibility $15 million, economic feasibility $15 million, and environmental and social impact assessments of about $40 million. So the cost to examine the feasibility of this project is expected to be about $140 million. I want to outline clearly that the government has received the advice from the Attorney General's Department as well as the Ministry of Finance. And we can say that, or I rather outline, that this project under the 2012 concession agreement, the North-South Highway from Caymanas to Ocho Rios has a 50-year build, finance, and operate and transfer concession with the Jamaica North-South Highway Company. This is a project delivery method where the developer finances, designs, builds, and operates the project for a specific period of time before transferring it to the government. Under this concession agreement, JNSHC has the right of first refusal for any expansion of the highway. So I know that the question would have come, why are we using CHEC? CHEC is a partner in the North-South Highway. Based on the agreement that was signed long ago, the JNSHC has a right of first refusal for any expansion of the highway, which justifies and explains why we are here today signing an MOU with China Harbour Engineering Company. That was a quick outline. As you can see on the screen to my left is an outline of the alignment spanning from St. Mary to almost to the border of Trelawney. Most Honourable Prime Minister will also give further details of the alignment as well as some other aspects of the economic opportunities that may come from this significant and historic development. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Minister. And as I listened to you, one of the things I was listening out for were things like, and I have been hearing them more and more as we talk about development, and it is something that is becoming more and more mainstreamed in our national development agenda, things like climate resilience and sustainability. And speaking of mainstreaming, a few months ago, I was having breakfast with, a lady who I consider, something of a mentor. And one thing she said to me is that, listening to the Prime Minister over the years, there are certain words that have become sort of mainstream in our vocabulary as a country. So you hear things about fiscal responsibility, and now people know what those things mean. You hear about macro stability, and you start to know what those things mean. And so this Prime Minister is not just concerned with development for development's sake, but development that is sustainable and fiscally responsible. And so at this time, I have the great privilege and pleasure of inviting to address us our Prime Minister, the Builder, the Most Honourable Dr. Andrew Holness.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, for mastering this ceremony. Allow me to acknowledge the ministers who are here. We had cabinet running a little bit later than we had anticipated, and so for those persons who came on time, I accept that you understand. I have to acknowledge the Custos of St. Anne, who is present here because he's a very happy man for this project. And of course, the MP for the parish of St. Anne, Crystal Lee. And our partner, China Harbour, Mr. Gui. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this ceremony as we witness the signing of a revised Memorandum of Understanding between the Government of Jamaica through NROC and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and our long-standing partner in infrastructure development, the China Harbour Engineering Company. Today's signing signals vision, confidence, and a continued commitment to transforming Jamaica's infrastructure. The MOU will be valid for the next 2 years. It facilitates critical feasibility and impact assessment for the proposed extension of the North-South Highway westward to Discovery Bay in St. Anne and eastward to Tower Isle in St. Mary. If you're looking on this screen, the blue that's the color, would be representing the westward expansion between Miami Bay and Discovery Bay. And is that purple or pink? Let's say pink. that represents the expansion from Miami Bay to Tower Isle. Infrastructure ultimately is about people, but more so it is about productivity and mobility and the promise of a better life. It lays the literal and figurative foundation for long-term national development. As you know, we have made major investments to expand and modernize Jamaica's road network. These investments are guided by the understanding that roads are the engines of commerce, they are conduits of opportunity, and catalysts of national cohesion. The North-South Highway, commissioned over a decade ago, has become a symbol of this transformation, a modern corridor linking the capital and the industrial centers to the vibrant coastal towns of northwestern Jamaica. But development never stands still. As our economy and tourism sector expands and more Jamaicans travel for work, school, and leisure, our road network faces increasing pressure. Traffic studies confirm what commuters have been saying for the past decade. The existing North Coast Highway corridor is overburdened. Congestion now hampers productivity, it compromises safety, and it is a limiting factor on our growth potential. To address this, we have two complementary projects. The first is the North Coast Highway Improvement Project, which will expand and widen the existing North Coast Highway. And two, the extension of the North-South Toll Highway, both westwards and eastwards, as I had pointed out before. The proposed highway section or extension includes two segments. The westward section, as I had said before, from Miami Bay to Discovery Bay in St. Ann, and that is approximately 25.2 kilometers. And eastwards from Miami Bay to Tower Isle in St. Mary, and that's approximately 15 kilometers. This MOU pertains to the proposed extension comprising of the two segments that I had mentioned earlier. We have learned some important lessons from the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project from Harborview to Morant Bay and beyond. Attempting to upgrade a heavily used roadway without providing an alternate route will cause significant disruption and dislocation. And we saw that consistently when we were improving the South Coast Highway corridor. And even to this day, we are still having challenges because the truth is we were not able to divert traffic onto an alternate route. So we were literally building the road while we were driving on it. It created significant dislocations for residents, for businesses. Now, could you imagine if we decided to carry out an improvement work on the existing highway from Miami Bay to Discovery Bay, where all the hotels are along the corridors? The major connection between St. James coming into Kingston would have to pass through that corridor. All the towns along that corridor. Can you imagine a cruise ship waiting in port for its passengers to return from the various excursions that they are on, and the bus is stuck in traffic because the best ever weekend party was on? It would be real challenges. And so we are going to pursue both projects, both the upgrade of the existing highway and the extension of the North-South Highway, but we're going to be strategic. We're going to do the North-South Highway extension, toll extension first, before we undertake any upgrade or construction on the existing alignment. Under this agreement, CHEC will conduct all necessary studies, technical, financial, environmental, and social, and I just love to say this, at no cost to the government. Let me be frank. Sometimes we believe that the highway construction begins when we start to see clearing of the site. That's the time when the public believes that road work is going to start. They have to see some equipment move onto the road, and then they say, yes, road construction begins. But I'm going to be at pains to explain, as I have done on several occasions, that the work actually starts when we make the decision that we are going to be doing the feasibility studies. And oftentimes, not enough resources are placed at the disposal of our road development agencies, whether it is the NWA or NROC, so that they can undertake the planning work and the pre-feasibility work to ensure that when we actually start excavation for the site, we are excavating in the right place. Oftentimes, because we don't emphasize the planning element of the infrastructure, when we get to the actual physical turning of the soil or clearing of the pathways, we end up in areas that cost us far more to construct than if we had spent the resources on doing the feasibility that would have guided us away from some of the difficult areas. And I say this because the construction of the existing North-South Highway faced some of those challenges, where we ended up on certain alignments that cost us quite a bit, and even delayed the completion, as we had to find creative engineering solutions to some of the problems that we encountered. This administration has taken a different approach. We are investing more and more into the planning of the infrastructure work. And so China Harbour, which has been here with us as our partner, has significant expertise in this area. They have developed the existing North-South Highway, so they would have become very intimate with the terrain, so they would have a better understanding of the challenges. And so it makes sense that they undertake the feasibility studies that need to be done. And just to repeat, these feasibility studies include not just the engineering and geotechnical, but the financial and some environmental work as well, to ensure that whatever we do does not unduly interfere with our environment. CHEC has been our trusted partner in these matters for over a decade. And they have done several major projects, including the North-South Highway, but they are also doing the Montego Bay Perimeter Road and all the other works associated with that. They are close to completing the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project, and they are about to begin the Port Antonio bypass. Now, why are we doing all of these roads? Because the public listening would be saying, you know, these highways are fine, I like them, they make Jamaica look modern, I get to where I'm going quicker, and I'm sure every member of the public would agree that we need to improve the corridor between Miami Bay and Discovery Bay. The snippet that was shown of the traffic at standstill because of an event, nobody would question that this is an expenditure that needs to be done. But in the back of the mind of the public is still the concern that I want the road that passes my house to be fixed. And if you were to travel into some of our rural communities, I've traveled around Jamaica. There's scarcely a community I have not been to or an area I have not visited. And yes, our local roads, particularly in rural communities, many of them are in a state of serious disrepair. And the question is, how do we treat with this? Couldn't we have taken the resources that will eventually be used in this and fix those roads? And the answer is yes, we could. But what you want is to generate the resources, to have a stream of revenue coming in that can be dedicated to fixing those roads. Not just a one-off fixing where you could only fix some of the roads. What we're trying to do, and just to bring the public into the conversation and the understanding, is to build the highways that generate the economic activity that then generates the revenues that we then direct to the roads that pass by your home. And if you think about it, yes, you have to leave your home, you drive on the bad road, but then you get on the highway and you get to work. Now, when you get to work, we want you to be productive. We want you to have a shorter travel time. And we want to be able to move goods around the country quickly, from production outlet to market point of consumption. And we want to increase that speed. And it is the highways that do that. Once we build out that highway network around Jamaica, which is the intention of the government, the intention of the government is to build a highway network around Jamaica that you can get around Jamaica in less than a day. And smooth roads that connect you to anywhere in Jamaica. That's the intention. That will create the economic engine that will generate the revenues that we will then use to fix all the roads, including the roads that pass by your house, the roads in your local community. And to show you that the government is serious about this, the first opportunity that we have gotten to make a massive allocation towards repairing in a systematic way, not patching, but full rehabilitation, to give you a carpet road, as we call it, is the Spark program. An allocation of over $45 billion. Where is that coming from? We're not borrowing it. It is coming from the economy doing better, and we are able to make the allocation. But that's just one allocation. Where is the next allocation going to come from? The next allocation has to come from further economic growth. And how are we going to spur that further economic growth? We're going to make our country seamless in travel. So take, for example, how this will impact tourism. If you are a tourist, and we're not building roads necessarily only for tourists, but we're building roads for our tourism product, which is very important. If you fly for an hour and a half from Miami into Sangster International Airport, and then it takes you 2.5 hours to 3 hours to reach your hotel in, let's say, Negril or Grand Bahia in St. Anne, you're going to say, boy, it's not worth it. I want to get to, my hotel 10, 20 minutes at most after I land, especially if it's for vacation. So your road network has to be so well developed that once you come off of the plane, you know you're going to get to anywhere in Jamaica very quickly. And that is what we want. Now, once Jamaica is known for its seamlessness, then you're going to get more people coming to Jamaica for tourism, because they say Jamaica's infrastructure means that I get sun, sea, sand, and seamlessness. There's another S that we add to it: safety and security. Right? But that's how you develop the economy. Right? So if we make these kinds of strategic investments, as we have made a strategic investment in bringing down our murder rate, people look at Jamaica and say, Jamaica is now safer. We make the investment in our roads and we can move around, and you can move from cruise ship port to go and, go to Dunn's River Falls or go to whichever other attraction you want to go to and get back to your cruise ships quickly. They say, Jamaica is a perfect place to come. More tourism, more revenues for the country. But just consider that for the 50,000 Jamaicans who are still unemployed, a part of the problem of the unemployment, and we pick this up in the polls that we have done and the surveys that we have done, is that there is still a fairly high level of persons who are not employed. They are in the labor force, they are seeking jobs, but they are not employed, but they are in rural communities. And you ask yourself the question, why is that so? Because whenever I'm here in Kingston or in St. James, in Montego Bay, the business community tells me we can't find people. There are about 50,000 persons there. Part of the reason is that they are unemployed, is that they don't have skills. But another part of it is that transportation is an issue for them. Distance of travel and cost of travel. Now, if you put in the infrastructure that makes travel easier, then you can bring more people in. They can come into Kingston for training, which is one of the issues we have, because that residual number of persons who are not trained, not skilled, and who live far from where the work is, once you put in proper road infrastructure, it makes it easier for them to travel for work. It also makes it easier for the government to extend public transportation, as you are seeing happening now with the expansion of the JUTC routes into areas like Morant Bay, into Mandeville, because we now have the road network that can bring subsidized public transportation closer to where people live. It also helps with things like issues such as informal settlements. If transportation is easier, then I don't have to settle close to where the work is. I can go back home. What plagued our tourism for many years is that people had to leave their home and informally settle in a community close to a hotel, for example. That's an attempt to cut transportation costs. So we take all these things into consideration strategically when we are making these decisions about improving our infrastructure. So I know every Jamaican is happy that the government is going to finally address the Miami Bay to Discovery Bay corridor. Whenever any show is being kept, and I've attended a few of the show, I went to the Bujo Intimate, yes, concert, and I was stuck in traffic for a little while, and I I reflected on it and I said, we must do something about this. And there have been several events there that whenever there is an event, it's just total chaos. We're going to fix it. It's not going to be fixed tomorrow. This is the start of it. We're going to study the problem, figure out the proper routing for the extension, and execute. But the development is not just for that corridor. We're also looking at developing the extension of the toll road, which will become a bypass for the town of Ocho Rios, which is also very congested. And, the potential of Ocho Rios is literally being undermined because of the congestion of the town. So we are also going to develop a leg heading eastwards around Ocho Rios. So with that, travel would be made much easier in Jamaica. But the effort right now is for the leg from Miami Bay to Discovery Bay. Now, once that is done and traffic can be diverted, then we will move full force to improve the actual road corridor that exists now. And so Jamaicans will have 2 routes to get to Trelawney and into St. James, going through St. Anne. Now, just in closing, the Miami Bay to Discovery Bay corridor has a particular energy which I haven't seen in any other area in Jamaica in terms of how it is developing. Housing is exploding in that area, but also commercial and light industrial is emerging in a significant way. We cannot allow development to outpace critical infrastructure. That has been the problem in Jamaica. Private developers have said, I want to build this, I want to build that, and they have gone ahead and built housing and put up lovely buildings, but the infrastructure has lagged behind. Now what we have tried to do is to keep a pace with development and go ahead of development. So we intend to go ahead and build the roads even before the development comes. In this case, we're still trying to catch up, but we are not too far behind. The extension of the North-South Highway will create new lands for housing opportunities and other developments, which will ensure that the government can have a more direct and strategic intervention in the planning of the area. So yes, development is going along the existing corridor, but once we put in the roadway through the extension of the North-South Highway, we can then designate other lands for development and other lands for housing, which would then ensure that you don't have an overcrowding and an overburdening in the areas that are now currently being developed. And so that's the thinking. So ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be signing or witnessing the signing of the MOU today. And in closing, let me thank our partners, CHEC, NROC, and the wider public service for the work done so far. And let us... Yes, Minister of Water. So let me thank again NROC, CHEC, and the entire public service for bringing us to this point. Let us get this done. And what's the timeline? It's 2 years to do this, the feasibilities? Not fixed, but you will try and do it very quickly. Yes, very good. So the Jamaican people can rest assured that work has now begun on this new corridor.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I usually don't do like a synopsis of the speeches after they're done, but there are just a couple things I wanted to point out. The Prime Minister talked about lessons from the South Coast Highway Improvement Project, and he talked about how we were essentially driving on the road as we built it, which we know to be another take on the corporate speech, which is to build a plane while you're flying it. If you know, you know. All right. So the Prime Minister gave a full explanation, of course, of how this all works. And we see, therefore, that it does take a lot for a project to come to, first of all, the shovel in the ground or the fork in the ground, let alone to the handing over or opening ceremony. And so for the government to be able to say that it has accomplished hundreds of projects is indeed an achievement and no mean feat. Now, of course, you heard the Prime Minister mention the feasibility studies that have to be undertaken. And of course, why are these being undertaken? To ensure that value for money is achieved. And this is not just dollar value, it's not monetary value, it's the ease of travel, it's the convenience with which you can get around the country. It's about whether it will generate economic activity in the area, whether it increases productivity, which we know is an important driver for overall development. So all of these things are very, very important. And as usual, the Prime Minister was very comprehensive. And he talked about the next phase where we will use the income potentially generated to create more opportunities for investment. So that's the next phase for infrastructure development in Jamaica. The next phase for us here is the signing. So at this time, we will have the contracts placed for signing. And I don't need to invite, I think we're all in our places, except signing we have Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, witnessed by Prime Minister Holness and the Honorable Robert Morgan. Signing we have Managing Director of NROC, Mr. Stephen Edwards, witnessed by Mr. David Lazarus, member of the board of NROC. And of course, signing, we have Mr. Hong Shong Gui, project manager, and witnessing, we have Mr. Liu Wei, vice project manager, business manager at CHEC. We have 3 signees. Okay, so the signing has taken place. The witnessing is now taking place. All right, and now we're going to have a photo op with the signed Memorandum of Understanding. All right, phones down. Thank you. All right, so with that, I now have the honor of thanking you for being here today. We have just witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the government of Jamaica and China Harbor for the feasibility studies for the expansion of the highway. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been our pleasure. And if you did not have your refreshment break earlier, you may do so now. Thank you so much for being here.
No? That was the last cabinet.